Es ist Zeit bereit.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of your PA Dutch Minute. I got a topic that's been on my mind recently that I thought this would make a good video. At least I think it would. We're going to find out here if that's the case or not. And I also think this is a topic that will touch many of your PA Dutch hearts and minds. So let's jump right into it, dear friends. I got thinking recently about regional accents. Now, for anybody that's lived in the United States, lives in the United States, knows that as you travel around our great country, there are regional accents, whether it's, that stereotypical Louisiana accent you hear way down south, or a Texas accent, or Southern drawl, or if you get out in the Midwest, they have a way of speaking that is unique, or you travel up to New England. And that's what really, I was recently on a vacation, a motorcycle trip up to New England. Spent some time in Maine, and then we went on up into the maritime provinces of Canada. We were in New Brunswick, we were in Nova Scotia, and these are areas of the country and of Canada that I have been before. I was excited to get back because I really like these regions a lot. The people are nice, the food is delicious. You can see me enjoying my lobster and stuck in a Canadian hockey helmet there in St. John, New Brunswick. But as I was up there, in both of these regions, it really struck me again how strong their regional accent is. If you've ever met anyone from New England, particularly like the Boston area or in Maine, and you're not from there, you will automatically hear their accent. Um, you know, Insurance companies have used the Boston accent for purposes of selling insurance. Park your car and have it yard. You're gonna go get some lobster. And to a certain extent, people kind of maybe make fun of them. But the one thing that I noticed the most about the people that at least I ran into is how unabashedly proud they are of who they are and how they speak. And that really got me thinking as I was sitting in restaurants and talking to waiters and waitresses, or when we went into a store or a gas station, and you heard that accent come right out. There was no hesitation. That's who those people are. And as Pennsylvania Dutch, we have a history with our accent. And that's really what I'd like to talk about today, because this trip really got me thinking again. Why are accents important? What do they say about a people? I mean, if we look at it purely from those two questions, we could say, well, accents are important because it makes us different. And different is good. Maybe not everybody agrees with me on that, but that's my personal opinion here coming out. It's my YouTube channel. I can say what I want, right? But it also says about a lot of people. When you're in New England, in Maine, the reason they talk the way that they do is because of the history of that region, where those people came from. Their immigrant ancestors helped forge that accent that they have today. And it is distinct to that area. When you hear somebody say, "Would you like to get some lobster?" They're probably spent some time or are originally from New England. That is that regional accent. Same way if somebody comes in and says, "Y'all," you can most likely guess they're from the South. I mean, there's nothing wrong in saying that. That is a distinction of a region of our world, and it is who it is. Here in the United States, we have these regional accents, and it's not just here. If you get their chance to ever travel to Germany, where a lot of our ancestors came from, there are regional accents all over Germany. You can tell right away, as soon as a German opens their mouth, what part of Germany they are from, whether it's their Bavarian, which is a very unique accent, very different, or they're from the Pfalz, where our ancestors come from, or where a lot of our ancestors, as opposed to someone from way up northern Germany. So it's not just an American thing to have these regional accents. There are regional accents all over the world. You probably knew that, but it's good to remind people of that. And how we talk tells a part of our story. And I think that is so important. But we Pennsylvania Dutch kind of have a love-hate relationship, I think, sometimes with our own accent. And what do I mean by that is, there's this term, this moniker, the dumb Dutchman. And now in the 2020s, we look back at our grandparents' generation, our parents' generation, and how they spoke, because they still had that strong Pennsylvania Dutch accent. You knew it, you heard it, you loved it. It was how our people spoke. And there was a lot of reasons why that accent was much stronger back then than it is today. But at the same time, through the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, we get this term, the dumb Dutchman, because of how we spoke. We weren't speaking in sometimes proper English. Phrases like, "the pie is all," or something ouches him, or throw Papa down the stairs his hat, throw the cow over the fence some hay, or how we say our sounds, like I just did, ka, has, are, instead of cow, house, our. We know this. I've done videos on our accent itself, but I want to look at it, and I was thinking a lot more from like the philosophical standpoint of this. For a long time and for many generations here recently, we have chosen, whether it was society doing it to us or we did it ourselves to ourselves, to suppress this accent. And I'm guilty of it too. And I want to talk about that today. I'm going to completely own up. This stigma of the dumb Dutchman, I think, really stuck with some generations to push us away and to push their kids away from not speaking Pennsylvania Dutch, or, don't sound so Dutch. You're an American. It's the 1960s. It's the 1970s. You need to sound American. And I really think there was that. And whether we were doing it consciously or subconsciously, we were doing it. And I have to tell my own story. Look, I grew up in the 1980s and the 1990s. I had 4 Pennsylvania Dutch grandparents that had accents 100%, especially on my mom's side. Their accent was thicker than on my dad's side, but it was still there. And that was the language that I heard growing up, a mix of Pennsylvania Dutch, mix of English. But when they spoke English, they had that accent. I had it too as a kid. I still have it. However, that stigma affected me as well and continues to a certain extent, although I'm changing in that. But I'd like to tell my own story of my own suppression, of my own accent. When I went away to college, of course, that's when I first realized that my accent was a little different from other students that I was coming into contact with. And there probably was that little voice in the back of my head that says, well, now you can't sound so Dutch anymore because now you're in academia, you're going for a degree, all this, that's what I must have told myself. And I actively suppressed my accent and I tried to speak more quote unquote normal. Not necessarily my proudest moment thinking about it now, but I did it for so long. And then when I got a job as a teacher, I also had to think about, I'm going to be standing up in front of kids. I'm going to be teaching. I probably shouldn't be using my accent. But when I would get home from work and I was at home with my wife and kids, then I spoke the way that I speak. And I did this for years. I did this for years. And one day, not too long ago, I was talking about this with one of my classes of upper level German kids. I was talking about accents and how how accents form and why people sound the way they do, et cetera, et cetera. And I made in passing this comment that, well, I have an accent, and they're like, no, you don't. And I said, well, I don't use it here at school. And a kid called me out on it. And it really hit home. He said to me, come on a minute, Maidenford, you tell us all the time to be who we are, to be proud of who we are. And here you are not doing that. You're telling me that at home you speak differently than how you do with us. And yet you tell us that we shouldn't be doing that stuff. And he called me out on it. It really kind of like was one of those light bulb moments, maybe not so much, but I felt ashamed because the kid was right. He called me out on it. I preached this and then I didn't do it. I wasn't walking the walk. And that's when I went home and had a serious sit down conversation with myself. Who am I? What am I? If I'm going to do it, I got to do it, right? Be myself. And I have actively since that day have started letting go of these ideas that I should sound a certain way because of my job. And maybe that'll get flack for that as we come along, as time moves on, but I don't care. I don't care. And when I say has or are, and somebody in one of my students now since then says, what'd you just say? I'll explain what I just said. And I'll say, but that's the way I say it. And I know that's different from how you say it, but that also says who I am. And I think, that's where I come to this final conclusion, this little mini rant, I guess. You might be sitting yourself saying, yeah, Doug, you're right. I agree with you. This accent says who we are. It distincts, it makes us different from other people in Pennsylvania or in the United States because we are different. We have this different story, this different background. I came up with these 4 things that I thought, you know what? What if somebody says, well, what should I do? What can we do? I would say 1, embrace it. It is who we are. It's our story. When I do engagements, when Chris and I play shows, like at the Kutztown Folk Festival this summer, and I'm speaking with my Pennsylvania Dutch accent. I have more people come up to me and say, "Oh, it sounds so great to hear you because you remind me of my grandparents or you remind me of my parents." And I think to myself, well, what's stopping you from doing that, right? But I always say, well, I'm glad that I was able to transport you to happy times or whatever just by saying, just by talking, really. So embrace it. It is our story. It's part of our story. It's not our whole story, but it's part of our story. Use it. If you have that Pennsylvania Dutch accent, don't suppress it. Don't do what I did for too long. Too long. I'm changing that. I made a personal change. So anybody can. If I can do it, because I'm pretty stubborn and thick-headed when it comes to certain things, but divest yourself from the stigma. The one thing I didn't say, this whole dumb Dutchman moniker, it was wrong from the start. The Pennsylvania Dutch were multilingual people. Spoke two languages, English and Pennsylvania Dutch. In other cultures, when the more languages you speak, that's a sign of intelligence, of ability. Of course, in America, maybe not so much, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be. So, we were ingenious people. We helped create this country. We helped maintain this country. This idea of the dumb Dutchman, just because of we spoke different from other people, that stigma, in my opinion, that's done for. And anybody that says it, I call them out on it. That's me personally. I'm not saying you have to get as radical as I am, but that's where I'm at. This idea of a dumb Dutchman, that doesn't exist because in my mind, these people, our relatives, our relation, our forefathers, foremothers weren't dumb by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure you all would agree with me on that. So don't let that stigma influence you. Don't drop it. In fact, push back against it. That's what I've been doing here recently, and I'm glad that I am because it makes me feel better, me personally. Tell our story. So if you do have our accent, or maybe you lost it, you had it when you were a kid, but you lost it, that's okay. Slip some words back in. I'm not saying like act, but be yourself, of course. But if you do say "r" or "ka" or "has," and someone says, "What's that? Where are you from?" Tell them your story. Well, I'm Pennsylvania Dutch, and our regional accent says that. It's perfectly fine for someone in Maine to say "lobster," and people like it. What's wrong with us saying "has" or "are"? Nothing. Tell our story. That's where I'm at, guys. And I don't know, maybe this video spoke to you. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that it did, but maybe it didn't. I don't know. In any event, tell our story. Be proud of our accent. It's who we are. It's what makes us different from other groups. And that's good. That's okay. That's totally okay. We're all one big team America. I'm not saying that we're not, but those differences are what makes our country great. It's what makes us different and great. So that when you travel to Maine and you hear that accent, it makes you feel good. And you can think if someone travels to Pennsylvania and hears our accent, then that makes them feel good too. Because they know they're somewhere different. That's great, isn't it? That's my personal opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm sure I'm going to get I could get some hate mail for this, and that's fine. I've gotten hate mail before. I like hate mail, actually. It motivates me to go farther and push farther. But let me know in the comment section down below, either here on the YouTube channel or on Facebook, what your thoughts are. Where do you stand on our accent and on this idea of the dumb Dutchman? Are you proud of your accent? Do you use it? Did you lose it? Do you wish you hadn't lost it? Let's get a great conversation going. I'll be so interested in reading what people have to say and their experiences. Tell your story, and that helps us tell our story, dear friends. So a couple things. If you'd like to show off your Pennsylvania Dutch pride in another way, you can visit our Zazzle shop. The address has changed. Please note, zazzle.com/PA Dutch 101, where you can find some cool Pennsylvania Dutch themed merch, where you can wear a t-shirt that says something in Pennsylvania Dutch and make yourself feel good too, and help tell our story even more. If you like what you're doing, if you like what we're doing here on the channel and you'd like to financially support us, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Doug Mainford, or you can become a monthly patron on our Patreon page. Just go to patreon.com/PA Dutch 101. And all money raised through these campaigns goes to the upkeep of the channel. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look for @PA Dutch 101. I'm on all those platforms, sharing the Pennsylvania Dutch gospel, and also visit our website for more information, padutch101.com. Till next time, dear friends, keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch. Use your accent. Tell our story. Schwätzt Deutsch, speak some Pennsylvania Dutch, and mach's gut.
Moxie, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And schlock that notification bell.